I'm learning with iDigitalpreneur, and in this video we'll discuss about pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So first of all, starting off with what pseudo classes are, they are inbuilt CSS classes which can be used to style different states of any HTML element. Now I have mentioned a couple of states in which a particular HTML element can get, although there are quite a lot of different states for different HTML elements, and it is not possible to discuss each one of them in this particular course, but we will be seeing a quite commonly used ones, and these are hover, active, checked, link, visited. So whenever you want to apply a particular piece of CSS style for a particular piece of state for any HTML element, you use something called a pseudo class. So for this purpose, I have my index.html open up, and I will first of all insert a anchor tag here. And let's say this anchor tag takes me nowhere, and it says click, or rather show me the social media giant. Now by default the anchor tag has a color of blue for the links which are not visited, and if I click on this, now this color changes to purple. This is the default color for any anchor tag that you insert in HTML. For example, now let us assume that you want that these two colors should be of your choice. You can use the pseudo classes associated with the anchor tag to change them. So let us see how this can be done. So for my anchor tag, in order to style a particular pseudo class for an element, we first of all specify the CSS selector. So I can either use the element itself, or if I'm using a class, let's say social, and if I want to use this CSS selector to be my CSS selector here, I can use that as well. And in order to access a pseudo class, I use the colon, single colon, and now I have a list of different pseudo elements and pseudo classes. Pseudo elements are represented by double colons, while pseudo classes are denoted by single colons. And as you can see, there are quite a lot of different pseudo elements as well as pseudo classes, and we only need to concern ourselves with the links or the anchor tags which are not visited yet by the user, and the links which have been visited by the user. So for the state where I want that if I have added a link, or I have added an anchor tag and the user hasn't actually clicked on that particular anchor tag, I want the color to change from blue to red. So I will use the link pseudo class like this, and now I can give it a bunch of different CSS properties. I can say that the color needs to be red, and maybe the font size to be 1 rem. Now this won't be useful here because this link has already been visited. So let us go ahead and add a new link, and I will call this social as well. I will call this social as well, and I need to change the text here. And now, because both of these two classes are the same, so let me first of all just change it to something else. And now you can see that by default any new link which is not visited by the user is now being shown as red. That is because I have applied a pseudo class of link and given it a bunch of CSS styles. Now in order to change the color of the visited link, I can use the same trick, social, and now I will use a pseudo class by the name of visited, and now I can say that the color needs to be maybe yellow. And now you can see, because the first link was already visited, instead of it showing in purple, now it is showing it in yellow. So I am controlling all of this. I am controlling all of this using CSS pseudo classes. Now there are other pseudo classes as well. One of the pseudo classes we already saw in the previous video when we were discussing about the transform property, and that was the hover class. So let me again add in a button, and it says hello, and now inside of my style.css I will say I want to style out the hover class, and this happens whenever the user is hovering over any particular HTML element. The hover can be used with any HTML element. As a matter of fact, any of the pseudo classes can be used with any of the HTML elements, but there are some pseudo classes which are linked with a particular type of HTML element. For example, there is a pseudo class by the name of let us see what we can get. We have, so let us just see what all different pseudo classes that we can get. So let's say if we have something called end range. So end range is used for a particular type of HTML element if you're using range sliders to kind of control it. And there are other pseudo classes as well. But let's say past and paused, picture in picture, these are used with the video HTML tag itself. It's not used with any other HTML tag. So you need to play around with different pseudo classes to kind of achieve what you want. And pseudo classes are really powerful because it gives you a lot of control over the different states a particular HTML element can go. So right now I'm concerned with the hover class, and I want to say that the color needs to be maybe orange. And now once I hover over the button, you can see that the text color changes to orange red because that CSS has been defined here. Let's discuss a couple of more pseudo classes, and we will say that there is a div here. Let's remove all of this, we don't require it. And inside of my div, or rather let's say there is a unordered list, and there are 4 different list elements, or rather 5 different list elements with A and B, C, D and E. Now, for example, I want to target all of the even elements in my list and give them a different styles. Now, one way which I could do is I can give it all of the even numbered elements a class name, and then I can use that class to give all of those elements a particular style, but that is not dynamic in nature, owing to the fact that whenever I add in a new list, I need to determine whether the newly added element is an even element or an odd element. So there is a better way of doing this. Inside of my style.css, I can say that the nth of child, nth of child, and I can give it a value of 2, and I can give it a value of some style, let's say red. So this needs to be li, and now you can see that every second li element, whenever an li which is the second element, it will have a value of all of the CSS properties that I have defined. Now, if I want this to be for every even number, I can give it a generic formula. I can say 2n, and n can be a value from 0 to any positive value. And now once I do this, you will see that every even number elements are having the particular CSS styles that I applied. Now, if I keep on adding more elements here, this is going to be dynamic, and every even number is going to have that particular style which I defined inside of my CSS. Similarly, if I want this to be odd, I can give this a value of 2n plus 1, and now every odd elements will have the particular style of color of red. This is the use case of pseudo classes, because it's now giving you much more complete control over the different states of the different HTML elements present. Now let's move on to pseudo elements, and pseudo elements are similar to pseudo classes in a way that pseudo classes are used to control the style of different states of the HTML element, while pseudo elements are used to control the stylings of particular parts of the HTML element. What do I mean by it? So let's say there is a paragraph and there is some text, dummy text here, and now let's say I want to target the first letter of my paragraph. Now I can use a span here and kind of achieve the same thing, but there is pseudo element for it. So I will say P, which is my paragraph, and now for using the pseudo elements, we use the double colon. we use double colon, and now I can use different pseudo elements present to me inside of my CSS specification. I can use first letter, and now I want my first letter to have a font size of 3 rem and a color of maybe red. And now you can see that every paragraph's first letter, if I add in more paragraphs here, every paragraph's first letter will be targeted using the pseudo elements of first letter. Similar to this, we have other pseudo elements as well. We have first line, and let's say the first line of every paragraph, I want them to have a particular style. So I will say, let's say 1.1 rem, and let's also add uh, more lines here. So what I will do is I will increase the number of characters, and now every line, every first line of my paragraph will have a particular styling. So it's controlling part of the text. It's controlling the styles of the part of the text of a particular HTML element, and that is what pseudo elements are all about. So this was all about pseudo classes and pseudo elements. I would highly encourage that you go ahead and play around with different pseudo classes and pseudo elements so that you get a much more clearer picture of how you can use all of these properties in conjunction to kind of achieve complex CSS stylings in your web page. Till then, I will see you all in the next video.